So welcome to the Node.js Community and API Team meeting for February 25th, 2019. We'll follow our standard approach by going through and looking at what's in the current milestone and going from there. So let me share that. Okay, so everybody should be able to see that. So Gabriel's still in the process of joining, so I think we should skip the first one because he'll have the update on that one. Let's go to number 346. Just so we don't have Glenn, although it's sounding like serial port isn't necessarily as good an option as we thought in the beginning. So iConv, I think, Nicola, you were looking at that one?
Yesterday I tried to do all what reviewers requested in the PR, but I don't have the permission to push on PR, so I opened a PR on the repo of the guy that did the posting, and I asked him to accept my update. Okay. In case we need to do in other way.
Right. I guess if he doesn't accept that update, then I guess you might just need to create a new PR.
Yeah. I thought the same thing.
Okay. Okay, bcrypt.
Bcrypt, last week I wrote on the issue that we have about the porting. Just a moment. Bcrypt. Okay, I send the link on the chat.
Okay.
And I asked if they have a plan to switch to the N-API version of the add-on, and how I can eventually help them. Maybe if you want comment or add something, it could be great, because they didn't answer me.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So basically, if we can comment or take a look at that. But it sounds like you've done what you can. You said, hey, is there a plan, and how can we help? So that sounds good. Okay, now Gabriel is just asking if there is a phone number. So let me see if I can find that for him. Is there, where would that be? No, okay, sorry, I know the numbers are available somewhere, but I'm not sure. Maybe I need to stop sharing for a second to see. Because there ought to be, no. Anybody know where we get the Zoom phone number info? Oh, I think you're on mute if
Yeah,
you're talking. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let me see if I can put the number in. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I'll put it into chat, Michael.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay, and then you need the meeting ID, or that number will
Geez,
just.
I'm not sure.
Okay, just let me. 363 363 665 824.
And
Okay,
there's
we'll
a
see if
meeting
that
ID and a
works.
participant ID, which I just put in the chat.
Okay. Now that could be for you, but anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so let's continue on here. Let me go back
Okay.
to sharing. Okay, so that sounds good. Level down, I see Hitesh, you already updated it so that version 5 is the next version, which is good. Microtime is done. Glenn has a PR in for time. SQLite, I know I had a meeting with Jim a little while back. I don't know, Jim, you got an update on that one?
Yes, I do. So I've run the converter and I am working through the compile errors now. So
Okay.
That's in progress.
Okay, so you sort of started from scratch. I guess that's probably if there's been a bunch of changes. That's
yeah. Samson started his work 2 years ago. So,
right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Node report we've talked about and zero MQ. So okay. So I think those are well in hand. Any other comments before we move on? No. Okay. Burn down the SQLite port. I think that one, well, we just talked about that already. So burn down the list of issues raised by module owners. The most interesting one there, I think, that I remember is the one about not having access to the module.
Yeah, in Node.js API.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that in Node add-on API? Where is that issue? I think that's in Node, isn't it? Actually, well, there's two. I'm just looking for the actual issue itself. No, maybe it's a Node add-on API. Right, so this would be, it's issue number 449. I'll just paste that in the chat.
Yeah, missing module in init.
Right. So that one, I mean, I think I'm trying to remember, I don't remember all the context, but I know we definitely had a discussion about that one and chose not to include the module. Here, I'm trying to find the chat. Oh, there we go. There it is. The only thing is I could see if there's like no other way to get the path to where your module is, I can see that being useful. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts or thinking on that one.
But what I understood is that he won't know the path of the module. Is right?
Yes, I think that's the key thing that's missing is like, it sounds like there's a configuration file which is in the module and you need the path to be able to open that.
Okay.
I see there's a number of new comments in terms of
yeah, Gabriel
right.
answered and talked with the reporter, and
Yeah.
I don't know if this issue is correlated with another request that we had some times ago by by some people that are in the module team. So because they need to know to access this kind of information, and we discussed it with Gabriel a little on how this could be possible. But I remember that we need to support this on core on Node. If we
So we need to support it on what? Sorry.
From the core of an API, not only here. Because
nem hallják, amit mondok, és már írok neki. Nem lehet már.
Sorry, is that somebody else, I guess?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Whew.
Okay.
Right. Sorry about that. I thought like I wasn't, I was muted or something, or I didn't join properly. Okay, so yeah, so basically, yeah, talking about 449, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just thinking that after having spoken about this at length with Rafaela, I was thinking that I'm not sure if this is within scope, right? Because we dropped the module for a very good reason, right? Because we kind of assumed that native add-ons would be fronted by index.js's, right? But if his is not, then you know, this kind of configuration management, you know, where is my config file? You know, do we really want this to be within scope for native modules, right? Is what I was thinking. Because, you know, there are ample ways of locating paths to config files, and JavaScript is the best way to do that, right? The purpose of a native module is to expose functionality that is otherwise unavailable, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
I guess
it's like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. That's my basic point. Like, do we really want to take this on? And I understand that it was available before, but
right. So that's kind of the decision we need to make. So it sounds like you've got a way that you can do it, which is basic. I mean, and I haven't looked at it because you just did it in the last couple of days. But in terms of like how much extra work you have to do in your add-on, is it
not much?
Right.
I mean. Look at it this way, right? So all the stuff that you write in the body of the init function, right, is basically just stuff that decorates the exports object, right?
Right. Yep.
Now, if instead of doing that, you just you put a single binding on the exports object in your init function, and then do all your decorating when somebody calls that binding, right? Then you can pass the config file into that binding, and then it'll decorate it accordingly, you know, by taking into account the config file. And then you can use JavaScript to do all the fancy path finding and path munging and whatever you want with all the power of the path and the FS module behind you, and then give it some hopefully authoritative path, you know.
So all you really need is a JS which does the require of the native module and is in a known location relative to the native stuff, right? Is that what you're saying? Like basically the index.js is just you need an extra file, it's in the same module, and then that does the require for you, and it can find the path. Have we lost you, Gabriel? We might have lost them. Let's see.
Here, can you hear me?
Oh, now you're back. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's a weak signal, even on the phone, which is really weird. Because I have like 4 bars, so I don't understand why. So anyway, so basically, you pass some path into a binding provided by the native add-on, and in response, the native add-on gives you the rest of the binding. Did you guys hear that?
Sorry, you provide a path.
Yeah. So
right.
So okay. So you create a function called initialize, right? It accepts 2 arguments: the exports and a path, and it returns the exports back. But now the exports are properly decorated as they would have been in a normal add-on in response to just initializing the add-on. So it's like a 2-pass initialization.
Right. So, but I mean, if I was writing a module, it's basically adding in 1 extra JavaScript file.
Yeah. And I mean, Rafaela did say that he is providing his add-on as an NPM package, right?
Right.
So he can just do like start equals index.js and all that, right? I mean, I understand that those consuming his module may be loading the add-on directly, right? And so that's why he doesn't want this in between index.js step. But okay, yes, he has lost that ability. I have to admit that, right? But he's lost it for very good reasons, and it's working for like 99% of everybody else.
Yep. So that means there is a workaround in terms of so even I guess you could do it a couple ways. One, you could require a different file which then wraps and does it, or you could even basically say you just need to require and then call another file which will do the initialization, right?
Yeah. I mean, or just call back into the add-on, right? So, like one of the bindings of the add-on could be a function called initialize, which accepts the exports and then just adds all the other stuff. And it can also accept the config file at that point.
How does it get the path?
Well, from JavaScript, like, okay, the JavaScript looks like this. Const something equals require my add-on, right?
Yep.
And then you say add-on dot initialize bracket add-on comma underscore dear name. And then, add-on equals add-on dot initialize bracket add-on comma underscore dear name. So in effect, you're calling back into the add-on, passing the add-on itself back into the add-on and the path. And so now the add-on on the native side has everything it needs to take into account that config file.
But the path, like the dir name, I would have thought would be the dir name of the code where you're running, like unless
that would be the dir name of the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be the dir name of the index.js from whence you're calling, right?
Right. So you've packaged an extra index.js into the module, and that's what you call.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So but at that point, since you're passing the dir name from JavaScript, right? Then you can do any kind of like path management. You can like path.join, build, release. You can search. You can do whatever you want, and then pass what you know to be a correct path into the module. Whereas on the native side, you have very limited resources because Rafaela right now is doing some super expensive like path traversal and all that. But I mean, if you did all that in JavaScript, it would be 1,000 times simpler.
Right.
So,
so it sounds like today, easy workaround is just to basically make a JavaScript wrapper that does the require for you.
Exactly. Yes. And then the native module becomes the module.export of that. And so you're basically passing it through. Right. So, okay. The only thing is, and I think this is what his objection is that if you, instead of requiring your native module, you DL open your native module, then it's not going to pass through the index.js, right? And so it won't be properly initialized.
Right.
But like, you're not supposed to DL open a native module. You're supposed to require a native module, right?
Yeah.
And okay, fine. Like
even work.
So even if you require the .node file, even then you're only going to get the one binding, which is initialized, which you then have to call, right? So it's going to change the way, like if his consumers are not saying like require package name, but they're saying require package name /build/release/ his module.node. If they say that, then this won't work, right? Because they're bypassing the whole NPM packaging system and just loading the add-on directly. But that's not canonical, right? Like, that's why we have NPM packages, is so you require package name.
Right.
So that's one scenario under which it would fail. The other one is if as he puts it, they require the module from the native side of their own native module, right? But even then, if they acquire the global require function from JavaScript and then they say require package name, it should still work, because then the node will do all the resolution and everything. So I would really have to see the use case where it is impossible to go through JavaScript, you know?
So I think as a workaround, I have no question that it's kind of what I was thinking, that you should be able to get it from JavaScript. The question is the use cases, is it nice enough not to have to do that, to add in something like a get path, N-API get path?
Yeah.
Because that would be relatively easy to do, I think.
Yes and no, right? Because the path that we do get, and the path that the module did have so far, right, that he was using, is probably correct, but there are, as I said in the comments, there are such things as symlinks, right? And so the things that DLOpen does to turn the path that you give it into an actual inode from which it can mmap, is something that is internal to DLOpen, and it may be highly platform specific and so on and so forth. The best we can do is to provide whatever path we were given which was the result of our own path resolution, of turning the require parameter into an actual path on the file system, because we do some of that, right? And it 99% of the time it's correct, precisely because we have pretty standard package structures, right? So symlinks shouldn't be a problem. The my addon.node inside build release should be an actual file, 99.999% of the time. It should not be a symlink, right? And so far it has not been, and that's why it has worked for Rafael, right? So his use case would be addressed if we were to provide such metadata, but not too many people need it, because nobody's come up so far saying that I need this. People have had many questions about Node add-on API, but this has never been one. And we've been out there for a year now.
It's still possible he's the first. I'd more do we think that loading is loading a config file something that's typical?
Well, yeah, sure. Okay, that's what NPM packages are for, right? You have an index.js. Index.js knows its own path, right? Because Node gives it to it via file name and dir name, and then it can build paths off of that, which are part of the package, and access any files that it deems appropriate from its own package, right? And provide absolute paths to those files to whoever requires it, right? But it's all done from JavaScript.
Right. Okay, so maybe it's more the question of how many modules don't have a JavaScript file where they can find the path.
Exactly. Yes.
And if we think there aren't very many, if almost all modules have a JavaScript file already, then
exactly. And we agreed that they do when we decided to drop the module.
Okay, I don't remember I couldn't remember the context of that, but I knew we figured there was a way we could get it.
Yeah. There were two arguments in favor of dropping the module. One was that most modules are fronted by an index.js, and then they load the native add-on, and then they massage it and whatever, and present a nice JavaScript friendly interface via their index.js, which other modules then require. And the other one was that if we keep the module parameter, then we're throwing ourselves into the fray regarding ESM modules, right? Because now we are sort of providing the common JS format except it's native, not JavaScript. And so we were, at that point, the discussion around ESM was still pretty fresh. And we were afraid that, okay, we're going to publish an API, and now we're going to have to support ESM explicitly because our format is now essentially common JS, because we have the module.export. And so we said that because most modules are fronted by index.js files, we can just do the lowest common denominator, which is take these functions, dump them into JavaScript land, and let JavaScript land worry about turning that into an ESM module or a common JS module or whatever. That was basically the rationale. And so we went with the absolute lowest common denominator, which is take this exports object, decorate it, and give it back to JavaScript.
Yeah, and I guess all of our examples do that.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe we just need an example that shows how to get the path, and then we're good.
Yeah, I mean that's what the gist does. That I pasted into the issue.
Yep.
So it basically does what every other example does, except the binding that is thrown back into JavaScript is only one binding, not the actual bindings that do the useful work. It's just one binding which you can call with the path and with the export. And then when that binding runs, it takes the path, it takes the exports, and it decorates the exports and gives it back. So then it's like a two-step.
I'm just thinking we can make an even shorter, easier example than that just says, like, basically have the index.js decorate the object you get it and then print it out from the add-on.
Have the index.js decorate the object.
Because, I mean, the whole thing we need to show is simply that you can get the path in the add-on, right? Like in the C code. So it's like whether you then what you go on to use it for doesn't matter as much as the, oh yeah, okay, I can get a path because I got it from Java. I got it in JavaScript. I added it in, so now it's available to my module, and the module.
The example from my gist basically just opens the file and prints it to the terminal, or saves it in a string and sends the string back to JavaScript. That's the trivial thing that it does.
Right. I'm just thinking, we could just simplify that to just printing the path.
Yeah, but anyway, Rafael saw my gist and he said that's great, but I can't use that. So then I don't have another solution for him except if we start brainstorming, what kinds of metadata a module might need. And at that point, I'm thinking that, configuration data management is not something that native modules should be doing, right? Do that on the JavaScript side and just take all the stuff that you can't do on the JavaScript side, like, high efficiency system logging, and do that on the native side. But, the where to log to and what the addresses of the various servers are and stuff like that doesn't belong in a native module except as a parameter received from JavaScript, figuring out where you are on the file system. Yes, you can do it on the native side, but it's 1,000 times easier in JavaScript.
Right.
So
I guess I'm more from the if 99% of modules didn't have a file that could grab the path. And then maybe we should have a method. If 99% are gonna have that, then simply documenting to show, and how you do it is probably good enough. Because what's the I guess what's the fundamental objection then to doing what's listed there?
What's listed where?
Well, like you said, your example isn't going to work.
Okay, I still don't understand. Like, what is listed where?
No, I think you said that you pasted in the example, but Rafael said it's not going to work for them.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to go through JavaScript. He wants, I guess, what he wants is for people to be able to load his .node file directly, and then there is no index.js in between that will basically forward, like, set its own module.exports to be equal to the add-on after having properly initialized the add-on with a path and everything. So then at that point he's sort of out of the loop. Actually, you know what? He's not, because because he does say that he does acquire the global require function from
Right.
from the main module.
Yeah.
And then he can do like a require dot resolve, you know, of his own package, and then he'll get the path. So, you know, as long as he provides an NPM package that Node can resolve, then he can just say, okay, from the native side, he can say, okay, you know, n-API call function require, comma, my package name, right?
Yep.
And then he gets back, or require dot resolve, right? So
Yep.
like get resolve from require, then call resolve with my package name, and he gets back an absolute path, and he can work with that. Okay, maybe
Right.
I should tell him.
Yeah.
Because there is such a thing as require dot resolve.
Right.
So that may be another thing he can do without invoking JavaScript and without doing the two-step init.
Oh, okay. So you can say, right, you can basically call back to JavaScript and say okay, so there's a method on the requires that will give you back the path to.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So require dot resolve is basically like the same as require, except don't then load the module. Just give me the path that you would load were I to ask for this.
Yeah, let me take a quick look at that, because that sounds require resolve, right? Turn string. Right, yeah, okay, well that sounds exactly like what, you know, you don't have to change your add-on at all. You can simply call
yeah. I think he's mostly concerned about his dependents. Like he doesn't want his dependents to have to change their code in the way they load his add-on. And so
right.
this may be able to give him that. And I'm gonna change the example to try and do that and see if that
Yep.
works. If he can get back to where his package is located, and then start, you know, dealing with his own directory structure rather than having to traverse directories at depth.
Yeah, no, that looks like a good approach. Okay.
Hopefully.
Good
Let's see if
discussion,
it works
but
out.
I mean, yeah, if that works, I mean, then that's you know, you do have to call, you have to make a few calls, but they're not too hard.
Yeah, it'll only add to the init time, but after the module is initialized, after that, it's as efficient as it was before.
I mean, and yeah, you're only doing that once. The only other question we might have is then, does that belong in Node add-on API? Like in the wrapper piece. Now that's what we'll get into. The other thing is like whether it should just be a wrapper or whether it should be an addition. But
well, you know, it's nothing fundamental, right? Like it can be done just by retrieving a global, and then retrieving a property of that global, which is a function. Then you're calling the function. You know, it's a node specific thing. So if we were to add it, I mean, we can add it as deeply as we want, but it's nothing fundamental, right? So I'm not sure if we should add it to core. I don't think we should add that to core, because, you know, it's
Node,
convenient.
like not Node core. I meant the wrapper.
The wrapper.
Yeah.
Well, we can debate that, but at that point we're not adding functionality that is otherwise unavailable. We're just adding convenience, and it's already pretty convenient in the wrapper because the syntax of the wrapper is very, very clean, right?
Yeah, that's true. That will actually be
I think you might even be able to chain most of this, right? Because you have like env dot global dot get, and then require, and then dot as object dot get resolve. You know, so it's you can pretty much just chain it. It's a few statements at that point. So I don't know how much.
No, that's true. If that's a chain, so maybe we just come anyway. Once you try it out, maybe we'll think about writing an example, because that ideal.
Yeah. Or changing this example to not do this ping pong initialization that Rafaela doesn't want for his add-on.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Well,
that's where we're at with 449.
Okay. So it sounds like we may even have a better answer, but it's one where we think most people should be fine anyway.
Yes, yes. So starting to go down this path of providing information about the module from core is something that I would be very, very cautious with. On the other hand, one can argue that if we want native add-ons to be on par with JavaScript add-ons, then sooner or later we'll want them to have dir name and file name and all these things, because JavaScript packages have that. Every single JavaScript or common JS module has a dir name and a file name. So
yeah, I mean, that's why I thought those two. Like, I wouldn't want to add the module back in, because the structure of that, will vary against implementations and what. But you can imagine that if you have a native module, you're likely always going to have a name and you're always going to have a path. Now, you can think of dynamically ones that aren't loaded off the file system. Maybe the paths are something different, but but I could see those two being useful. So.
Makes sense.
Kind of thinking like we could, that's why I was saying we would add a new method, which is like, okay, we'll look at the module, we'll pull it off, and we'll give you the path, right?
Yeah. Well, doing it in core, we can't do it at just any time, right? So this can't be like an independent API because we lose our handle on the module and the export as soon as initialization is finished. Right?
Well, what I was thinking that as part of the initialization, we would actually get those, stash them in the env.
Okay, but you can't put them in the env because the env is shared among modules. So you have to start keeping a hash in the env of every module that you're aware of.
Right.
So that can get rather fast. Oh, and it would also, well, no, I guess it wouldn't. Yeah, you'd have to have the hash, and then an API to access the hash. Okay. So that's if we were to do this, then that's probably how we would do this. But the thing is, we already have a hash of modules out there, so let's not have another one, kind of thing,
For some reason, I thought each module got its own env, but maybe I'm just misremembering.
Well, it used to, but then we ended up doing the sharing because that makes sense for modules. Like it starts turning into like a waste of memory at that point.
Right. Okay.
Besides, isolates are shared, contacts are shared.
Right.
So
each worker will get its own env, though, of course, right?
Yeah, because each worker has its own isolate. So we will not find. Okay, no. Every time you have a global, we stash the env in a private property of the global, right? So a worker will certainly have a new global because it has a new isolate, and so it will not find the env and it will create it lazily. So yes.
Right. Okay.
And I mean, it's not even a worker. Like even just a new context will have its own env because every context has a global. So we're pretty sensitive, but we're not that sensitive.
Right. Okay. But I mean, we could. So for the module loading, we could stash it, but again, it would be data that it'd be a little bit more complicated than what I had in mind. Because a module to name and look up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
In which case the require might just be as good anyway.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. So at that point, we'd just be convenient again.
Is there a way to get the name in a similar way?
The name of the module?
Yeah.
Well, the name of the module is whatever you give it, like whatever Node.js module name is, right? So you are aware of that.
Yeah, that's right. So that one, that's why. Okay, so the path, okay. So if the require approach works, I think just documenting that, and we're probably as good as we need.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then we don't have the ping pong, and I have to try it. I have to try the example and go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go back to what we were. We were looking at we were talking about issues that people had raised, and I brought that one up as one of the interesting ones. Are there any other ones that come to mind, Gabriel?
No, I don't believe so. That this was the one I've been working on last week, and hopefully we'll have a good resolution now.
Yep, sounds good. It's always good to chat about it. So then the backports of TSFN, we skipped that one. I think they're just waiting to land.
Yep.
And then finally, focus on async worker. I don't think we've made any progress yet, but.
No, I haven't gotten around to trying to land my PR again.
Okay.
But I think it's green now, because
Okay.
I figured out that on OS 10 you always have to compile with hidden visibility. Otherwise, you get really weird symbol interactions. If you have two SOs that have all the same symbols, it doesn't seem to know how to properly isolate them from one another and how to properly resolve. Like, it was insane. I was looking at the GDB backtrace, and it was like binding underscore no except, binding underscore no except in terms of the frame sequence, and then binding underscore no except. And I'm like, are you insane? How can you jump from one SO to the other in a single call stack? Like, they shouldn't even be aware of each other. And so I was like, okay, that's it, visibility hidden. So it took me about a week to figure that out. So yeah, I'm not sure. You know, the only thing that I can take away from that is I'm not sure if we should maybe document that for OS 10 people should add visibility hidden, because, you know, if you have well, I guess, yeah, if you have workers, then the module will be initialized multiple times, but the handles will not be. On the other hand, if you're looking at a large project, right, and you have two different dependencies somewhere deep down the tree that both use the same native add-on, right, but they use different versions of the native add-on, then on OS 10 you might get into clashes like I did, you know, because you have two different shared objects loaded into the same process. And now if OS 10 does this improper boundary setup, and then the code just starts hopping between the two native add-ons because the symbols just happen to resolve that way, then, you know, we may want to recommend that for the sake of OS 10, people build with F visibility equals hidden.
Are things are like the defaults on Linux so that everything is hidden instead?
I believe Linux does a very good job of scoping shared objects. So the primary symptom that I noticed was that if you have a global static variable inside like a class, like you have like static something equal or static int something equals 5, or you can't initialize it, but whatever, and that class is declared inside a header file, right, which is included from two different versions of the code, right? Because in Node.js N-API we build two modules, one with exceptions turned off and one with exceptions turned on, right? So if this and we have classes which are not templated inside nappy.h, right? And so because they're not templated, they are declared global, and they become symbols in all the modules that include nappy.h, right? And so what I noticed was when I add such a static integer and I take the pointer of it on Linux and I print out the pointer value on Linux, I get two different values. On OS 10, I get the same value. I get the same value twice. And that's impossible because it should be located at different addresses because it's two copies of the shared object. So I know the linker at runtime, because it's doing dynamic linking, is replacing my variable name with the actual address. And then that's why I'm getting an address. But it's replacing it with the same address for the two different modules. So I don't know what algorithm the linker is using to resolve the addresses, but it is wrong. And it's only wrong on OS 10 because it works fine on AIX. It works fine on every other unit, except for OS 10. It even works fine on FreeBSD, upon which OS 10 is based.
It might be worth writing that up a little bit just so that we can, either test it
and by the way, it's not even N-API specific, right? Because I just built a plain V8 binding, and you get the same thing. And the thing is, it'll work most of the time because it's the same code. Realistically, if the symbol name is the same, then chances are it's the same code, right? But sometimes, you get an object, especially if it's references, right? You get a reference that was created in one module, in one shared object, and you're using it in the other shared object.
Right.
So if the other shared object hasn't created that reference yet, now you're using a shell which has not been assigned yet, and boom.
Yeah. I think I need to understand a little bit better, but if you write up what we might suggest in the rationale, I can then read that, understand, and do some Googling.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, my other question would be, once I understand better, is there anything we should be doing different in the arrangement of Node add-on API to help avoid it as well? But I don't know.
One thing we could have done, and it's too late to do that now, is to make sure all our classes are templated. Because then you will not have name clashes, because chances are you will instantiate, or you will create a specification or whatever that's called in C++ when you actually declare the symbols.
Mm-hmm.
You will do that inside an anonymous namespace, and then the unique symbol value for each use of the class will be different, and so you won't run into this problem. But we don't have that. We have classes which are just declared just like that, and like, more and more, I'm beginning to see that we are not just purely inline, because we are adding symbols to people's add-ons, because we don't have these templated classes. So, or because not all our classes are templated, we are adding symbols to people's add-ons. And so all these add-ons written in Node add-on API will have all these symbols.
Right.
So on OS 10, this is kind of dicey, right? Because now if you have two different add-ons written in Node add-on API, they both have certain symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have this not so clean separation of shared objects in memory, then this might be a problem. If you have more than one Node add-on API built add-on in your process on Mac.
Right. So that's why I think it's good that we sort of go through, understand, and maybe there's some tweaking to the structure. Like, I guess it's a breaking change to change some of the non-templated ones to templated.
Yeah, because I don't think you the compiler will infer template arguments to the point where you don't even have to write the angle brackets.
Right.
I think you still have to write the angle brackets even if you don't put anything between them.
Right.
So yeah, that is a source level breaking change at that point.
It's still worth thinking about, but yes, okay. If you can write something up that I think I have a feeling, but I think we need to write something up anyway just to explain it to people. So.
Yeah, the other thing, and please correct my perspective, because mine is pretty limited, is that the reason why this hasn't come up before, I suspect, is that Mac is not really used in production, right? It's mostly used for development. So and on development, chances are you are working on the module, right? And it does work. Like, it's just seg faults very rarely and under very specific circumstances, right? And so that's what I suspect, is that Mac isn't exactly like a widespread sort of production environment where you have like millions and millions of hours of running this code and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably why we haven't seen this sooner, because it works on everybody else's system, right? Like, if it works on Linux, then it'll work like 90% of all production cases. Sure. And please correct me on these percentages, because that's what I'm unsure of. But that's the feeling.
Well, I think production is mostly Linux, and probably then followed by Windows. But still, we definitely need to figure out, because this is the first time. I mean, we've been running those tests, and I'm hoping it's not just that any one of our tests could have crashed. Like, we added a new test. You've added something new that caused it to crash, right?
Yeah.
And is that a special case, or is that a?
Well, let me think. So yeah, I specifically added a new class, and I added it to both add-ons, and there the symbol overlap. So and then I did the same thing with just a plain V8 add-on, and there the symbol overlapped too. But because the code is the same in both cases, in the case of the simple V8 add-on, I couldn't get it to crash because the code was too simple, right? The binding whose address was being reused across two instances of the shared object was just doing something simple like just returning whatever value was passed in as the first argument,
Sure.
So that's okay, right? But if the binding had been doing some stuff with references, then it might have crashed, you know. So you know, I can keep investigating, but the immediate solution is to protect your symbols on the OS 10 side with visibility hidden. Okay, so now that I think about that, one thing we might want to do is so that we don't have people change their config files when they build this, is, you know, we can just you know, add some macros at the top of nappy.h which define visibility hidden by default, and then just adorn every single global static symbol that we create with this visibility hidden. So, you know, I mean,
right.
that's good practice, right? Like, you want to limit the symbols you're exposing.
Right. If we never think that those symbols should be shared among the shared objects, that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. Like, but one thing that I'm kind of hazy about is in Node we have this definition called Node module export, right? And so you could mark one of your symbols as an add-on maintainer. You can mark one of your symbols as Node module export, meaning that, okay, please explicitly export this symbol. But if we have that, then isn't that because we're already building with default visibility hidden? Otherwise, why would you have to explicitly mark one of your symbols for export? Or does that cover the case in case you're building with hidden symbols, you still don't want the symbol to be hidden?
Well,
you know?
it may be that some platforms are hidden by default.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Whereas Mac doesn't seem to be.
Right. Like,
yeah,
I know,
true.
for example, like on AIX, it's very, like, you actually have to tell it every symbol you want to export. So we had to do to get symbols exported. On Linux, I think most stuff was exported. But it sounds like this is another case where, okay, you know, Mac is going even to another level of what's visible.
Yeah, to the point where it's like meshing different shared objects together.
So I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think if it's the case where everything that you're adding from Node add-on API, if there's never a reason we'd want them to be shared, then actually making them non-shared makes sense.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, that may be the way to go. And then we change the headers. We don't break anything, but we add this symbol visibility. But then we have to find a good example of how this is done, so that that the macro resolves to the right expression on all the platforms that we support. Yes. And I think there are examples of that. So we're going to have to grab those and go with those.
Yeah, that sounds like the right answer to me, because then people don't accidentally not include it, or if they don't want to have their stuff hidden, they don't have to do that. They can, it just gets, these ones get hidden. So.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever we provide that people don't realize may add to their symbol table should no longer add to their symbol table.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So that could be another to-do is to mark all our symbols as hidden and go over. I know this is something we do in Node periodically. We go through the binary using -a, like, hey, what's this doing here, and then mark it as hidden.
Yeah,
so
I think
we need to do the
that
same.
makes sense. Yeah. Because, okay. That sounds like a better answer to me than changing the things to do it with hidden.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's
pretty much out of time. Is there anything else people want to talk about before we call it for today? No? Okay. Talk to everybody next time.
All right, talk to you all later.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.